Madam Chair and members, Senate Bill 1261 removes school districts from the list of political subdivisions that may conduct mail ballot elections. With that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Say that again, slowly.
Madam Chair and members, Senate Bill 1261 removes school districts from the list of political subdivisions that may conduct mail ballot elections. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is that mail ballot only elections or just?
That's correct.
Okay. That's my bill. And this came to me from a constituent who said, I like to vote in person on school board elections. And I said, oh, okay, let's look into that. And hence we have this bill. So this enables someone who wants to vote in person on a school board election, meaning you can't just have mail-in voting only on a school board election. And with that, I stand for questions. Seeing none, do we have anyone to testify?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Do you have a question?
You do?
Yeah.
Well, of course you do.
I always do. You have to always look this way. Thank you. So I very much appreciate, I used to go in person and vote also. And so I've similar experience there. With school board elections though, I mean, shouldn't we worry about the extra cost of having moving away from the mail-in ballots to in-person voting?
Staff, is there a cost on this? Well, I get it.
Madam Chair, there is no anticipated fiscal impact to the state general fund associated with this legislation.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Senator Shope.
Thank you. Having served on a school board for 12 years, I think that this is actually referring to the overrides and the bond questions that are placed on a ballot for special election, not the actual school board election, which is always during the general election every 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. So I know we get crossed up with nomenclature sometimes.
Thank you. Did you have a comment, Senator Borrelli? Anyone to testify? Vice Chair, sir?
We have two requested to speak, but one is Ms. Graffagnino and the other is Karen McClelland. Is Karen here? Karen.
Yeah, Madam Chairman and members, my name is Karen McClelland. I'm a school board member in Sedona. This is my 23rd year on that school board, and there would be a cost to this because it costs more to run an in-person election than a mail election. And these off-year mail elections, when school boards have them, usually, as you said, for bonds and overrides, it's less expensive to do an all-mail election. Obviously, otherwise you would have to staff a precinct location with I don't know how many people, 4 people, 6 people, that are paid to show up at and be at a precinct. And these tend to be relatively low turnout elections. Unfortunately, I'm sorry that is the case, but they tend to be like small local elections, often low turnout. So you would be staffing polling places where very few people compared to the number of voters who vote would be turning up. So there would be a cost to the district because the district picks up a lot of that cost for the election when it's a school board only on the ballot. I don't remember the exact details of the cost. My memory is some years ago, if it's a school board only, it was about $15,000 in my district in Yavapai County, and that's a figure from a number of years back, so I don't know what it costs. So there is a cost to doing this, and the turnout is low enough that you may well have a polling place that's staffed where in a small school district, 1 person an hour comes in to cast a vote in person. So it would create a lot of additional expense and extra time for the county to staff those, take ballots, collect ballots, take them back, count them, as opposed to the all mail-in ballot, which we have now. And these apply only to elections which are every few years at the most in any given school district, because we do not all have bonds and overrides on in our districts. So there would be a cost to this. I can't say for certain if that $15,000 figure was correct, because that's my memory from quite a number of years ago. So thank you.
I have a question. Madam,
Ms. McClelland?
front and center. question, and I used to represent Sedona,
Yeah.
so thanks
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
making the trip. What if just one office were open, like the county clerk's office or a
Coun-
city office, and the word was put out, if you want to vote in person in this school board election, you can funnel into here?
I can't answer because I don't know what the possibilities are that in every school district that where there may not be a city or county office in the school district. I mean, I don't know for certain that that's the case. In some more rural areas, that might be the case, that the county office would be a distance away, and they are not often unincorporated areas that are not cities. So I don't know on that one.
Right, so I guess,
But I don't know what the logistics of that would be. That would be obviously a staffed office if there was, that might make a difference if you're talking about somewhere that's not, 30 or 40 miles away from the voter.
right, so I represent
Yeah.
4 rural counties, and more often than not, there's some civic office nearby that could be
Yeah.
near that school district.
Yeah, I just
Which
can't answer
could-
because I don't know.
Right,
what
so,
the-
Senator Borrelli, you're from a rural district. Did you have a thought on that?
Well,
Or a question, I mean?
maybe not a question for
Get right in the
Ms. McClelland, but when I was on city council, Lake Havasu, we had a citywide election. There's 50,000 people in Lake Havasu. And the school district actually expands beyond the city limits. So we had actually had a city election. It was all mail-in ballots. And the city clerk and the county, it was, number one, this is back about 15 years ago, and it cost the city about $70,000 to have this special election. It was a referendum. Cost $70,000. They went a whole mail-in ballot system, everybody, mail-in ballot. And they had pallets of ballots that come back, returned, unvoted. They just returned to sender. And so the voter turnout on that, as far as actually voting with a mail-in ballot, was a waste of taxpayer dollars. Now, as far as rural, very rural areas, I've got a lot of those little, hamlets in my district. And if they had a local school board election, logistically, I think it would be really easy. You can do it 1 week, 2 week in-person voting with volunteers, and it can be done extremely well with a fraction of the cost. Show up, use your ballot, fill it out, put it in a box. So you can count it later.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'd cover a county where the vast majority of voters vote by mail anyway. So they would be getting the mail-in ballot regardless of whether this law changed or not. So it does make a bit of, we have a relatively small number of people who go to the polls. I know that's true in my district. It's not true in lots of areas. That varies a lot across the state. But I see.
Madam Chair, to that point, it costs a lot of money to mail out those ballots rather than just standing up a polling site with volunteers.
Yeah.
My opinion. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, no one else requested to testify in person?
Let's move the bill.
Chair, I move that Senate Bill 1261 be returned with a due pass recommendation.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's take the roll.
Senator Borrelli?
Passed.
Senator Bravo?
No.
Senator Hernandez? Senator Shope?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Please.
This, to me, these are pretty. These are generally rare occasions. I can think on the 12 years, we maybe had 2 elections that we actually did in the off year, because generally, because of the cost involved, you want to have it on the regular election day. One was, I think, to your number 4 on the background on the. It was for a leased school building. We had somebody that wanted to do a lease purchase, and it was kind of one of those things where we have to. When's the next available date? We have an empty building that's been sitting empty for 10 years. Let's go ahead and find somebody who's going to go ahead and either rent it out or purchase it. So pretty rare. I think this is a very, very good bill to do that in a snap way like that. So I vote aye.
Madam Chair, explain.
Yes.
Thank you. I recognize the kind of the desire again to have that in-person voting available, but I am concerned about the cost to the school districts of setting up the in-person location in addition to what is probably their standard of the all-mail voting. I'm a little concerned that it might be, if they do have to have just the one in-person location, as you suggested, it might be far away from many voters and may not actually do a lot. And as I understand, under the elections procedure manual, school districts already have the ability to provide in-person voting locations if they choose, as well as the mail ballots. So I'm concerned. I think there's a requiring in-person voting there's potentially a slippery slope to other types of voting, or kind of the way that I know that there's elsewhere pushes to change the vote centers to precinct-based. I think there's potentially this is driven by some unhappiness with bond results. I have some concerns, so I vote no.
Senator Wadsack.
Aye.
I'd like to explain my vote, Madam Chair.
Okay.
The way our statutes are written, we have an exemption or exception for cities, towns, and school districts who may conduct their election by mail, and it implies that it's all by mail. And I think I'd like to work with you on, per your comments earlier and questions, I think it was, I don't think we want to preclude some in-person voting from occurring in these school district elections. I would also like to maybe see that as one of the options. I think it's been proven now for almost 3 decades. Since mail-in balloting was put in, it's gone from a fourth to about now 80% prefer to vote by mail. But there's still a significant number, almost 20%, especially in our statewide elections and larger elections that prefer to vote in person, and I think we need to respect that. So I don't think we want to inadvertently preclude it completely, but I support the idea of what you're trying to do here and your constituents' request, and I vote aye.
Madam Chair, may I express my vote?
You may.
Thank you. To do all mail-in ballots, okay. They requires all the ballots have to be printed, put in an envelope, which requires more costs, printing of an envelope, stuffing it in the envelopes, which costs a company, you gotta pay some company to do that, mailed out, okay? There might be a little bit of an exemption for the post office, but that's a huge expense. And then when it comes back, all the logistics of tracking all that, there's a major cost with doing all mail-in ballots. So, as far as referring to the EPM is rules that they have to comply with the statute, not the other way around. All mail-in ballots are very expensive. Having been on the city council and having to do a citywide mail ballot only was really a waste of the taxpayer dollars. And people, I believe, prefer, if it's really that important, to show up, make it easy for them to show up and vote, cast their vote in person, and that I vote aye.
Senator Rogers.
I will explain my vote. I think it's interesting to hear the phrase slippery slope. I want the slippery slope back to more accountability. I want the slippery slope back to people knowing they can go in person. I want the slippery slope back to the law and not go, as my colleague says, toward the electronic or the elections procedures manual, which is, as we say, guidance, okay? It's not the law. And so with that, I vote aye.
5 ayes, 2 nays, and 1 not voting.
By your vote of 5 ayes, 2 nays, and 1 not voting, we have given SB 1261 a due pass recommendation.